Hands where I can see them. Step away from the wall, slowly. Stop right there. Put the cans down slowly and step away from the wall.
Heard only the hiss of his spray cans and the distant hum of traffic. He crouched to examine a section when the sharp click of boots against wet concrete froze him. A police cruiser had pulled up. Officer Briggs stepped out, uniform stiff, face unreadable, flashlight slicing through the darkness. "What do you think you're doing?" Briggs barked, voice laced with suspicion that had nothing to do with art. Malik raised his hands, paint cans rattling, throat tightening. "This is my commission," Malik said, voice steady despite the cold drip of fear sliding down his spine. "Doesn't look like it. You're painting on city property without a permit." Briggs shot back, eyes scanning the mural with a dismissive sneer. The air thickened, the sound of rain masking the thrum of Malik's heartbeat. Nearby, a security camera blinked silently, unblinking witness to what was about to unfold. Malik felt the weight of every passerby's gaze that wasn't there, the invisible jury already deciding him guilty. "You're under arrest," Briggs said, the words striking like a gavel. Malik's hand stilled, fingers slick with color. One wrong move, one misunderstood line, one biased assumption, and everything he built could vanish before sunrise. He swallowed. The night held its breath. Malik crouched low, adjusting the angle of his spray can. Rain slicked the bricks beneath him, turning his vibrant paints into sharp reflections of city light. He traced a golden outline across a corner of the mural, the commission piece honoring local black artists and their forgotten stories. His hands, streaked in cobalt and amber, moved instinctively, translating years of devotion into the wall's texture. The quiet of the night was broken by the sudden echo of boots. Malik froze. A cruiser's headlight splashed against the mural, washing his colors in harsh white. Officer Briggs stepped out, uniform stiff, flashlight swinging with authority. "What do you think you're doing?" Briggs demanded. Malik raised his hand slowly. "I'm working on a commission. The city approved this mural." Briggs' gaze skimmed the mural, disbelieving, dismissive. "Doesn't look like it. You're painting on city property without a permit." "I have the permit right here," Malik said, reaching into his backpack. Briggs waved him off. "You can explain that at the station." Handcuffs clicked around Malik's wrists. He swallowed, tasting iron and rain. The spray cans rattled to the ground. Passers-by didn't appear, but Malik felt the weight of invisible judgment pressing down. Every stroke of color, every detail meticulously crafted, suddenly seemed meaningless against the unyielding power of bias. At the cruiser, Malik's voice wavered. "You're making a mistake. This is my work, my commission." Briggs leaned close, voice cold. "The law doesn't care." Malik's pulse throbbed. His mural, his late nights, his identity as an artist, all seemed to teeter on the edge of erasure. In the flashing lights, he caught a glimpse of the security camera mounted on the nearby building. Its lens, impartial yet accusatory, captured every detail of this injustice. The car door slammed. Malik's knees pressed against the wet pavement, and for a fleeting moment, he felt the city itself had turned against him. His mural, still glowing in the dim streetlight, waited for him. But Malik knew nothing about walls mattered when the weight of a biased system determined guilt before evidence, and his story was just beginning. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, harsh and unrelenting. Malik sat stiffly on a metal bench, the chill of the interrogation room seeping through his hoodie. Officer Briggs leaned back against the wall, arms crossed, expression unreadable but radiating control. A second officer, younger, flipped through Malik's permit with exaggerated care, glancing at Briggs for approval after every page turn. "You understand why you're here, don't you?" Briggs asked, voice flat. Malik met his gaze steadily. "I've been commissioned for this mural. All permits are valid. I haven't broken any law." Briggs snorted, a short, dismissive sound. "Valid or not, painting city walls at night looks suspicious. People call it vandalism. You don't get to decide perception, Mr. Malik." Malik's jaw tightened. "So my skin makes me suspicious." Briggs tilted his head. "Don't put words in my mouth. Just cooperate, and we can resolve this quickly." The younger officer interjected, "The community." Community complaints. Briggs corrected sharply. Someone saw him spray painting and called it in. That's enough. We act on reports. Malik leaned forward, voice measured but edged with heat. If a complaint defines criminality, then every artist, every muralist, every black person out here could be treated like a criminal. That's not justice. That's bias. Silence hung for a moment. Briggs' eyes narrowed, but he didn't respond. He gestured to the bench. Sit. Stay put until we sort this out. Hours passed. Malik's hands itched to touch the mural, to feel the textures of paint beneath his fingers. Instead, he sat, listening to the clack of keyboards, the shuffle of paperwork, the murmur of officers exchanging stories that didn't include him. Every question, every pause, every casual glance carried a weight of assumptions that his presence alone was enough to mark him guilty. At one point, Briggs leaned forward, voice low. You're lucky we don't have more charges lined up. Could be worse for you. Malik's chest tightened. Lucky or just overlooked? Briggs said nothing, eyes flicking to the younger officer, who seemed to shrink under the tension. Malik's thoughts raced. The mural outside, vibrant and alive in the night, became an almost mythical place in his mind, a refuge from the fluorescent prison. By the time Malik was released on a conditional promise to appear in court, his fingers were numb, his spirit frayed but not broken. The injustice of the night had been fully recorded in memory, each exchange a testament to the subtle, systemic prejudice that had defined the encounter. Outside, rain-slicked streets reflected streetlights, but Malik's mural had already begun to fade from his sight, threatened not just by weather but by the indifference of those sworn to protect justice. By morning, Malik's arrest had traveled faster than he could process. A news alert pinged on his phone. Local artists arrested for vandalism. The headline stared back, bold and accusatory. His name, usually associated with gallery openings and community projects, was now paired with suspicion and criminality. He scrolled through social media feeds. Screenshots of his mural were captioned with judgment. Caught in the act, blatant disrespect for city property. Who does he think he is? Likes and shares amplified the narrative before he could defend himself. Malik's stomach knotted. Every comment carried the subtle, not-so-subtle assumptions about him, his race, and his work. His phone buzzed with messages from fellow artists and friends. Some were sympathetic, some cautious. One friend typed, "This is insane. Are you okay?" People already assuming the worst. Malik's thumb hovered over the reply button. Words felt inadequate. How do you explain a commission to an audience that wants a villain in a black hoodie? At the local cafe, Malik met with his younger sister, Tiana. Dialogue unfolded quickly. "They called you a vandal?" she asked, eyes wide. "Yes," Malik replied, voice low. "Even with the permit, even with the approval, doesn't matter." Tiana shook her head. "It's wrong. People don't see you. They see what they expect." Malik ran a hand through his damp hair. "Exactly. They judge the color of my skin, not the content of my work. The mural, it's at risk now. Might get painted over." As he walked toward the mural that evening, the city seemed unfamiliar. The wall loomed, half-completed sections now tagged with unsolicited graffiti. Someone had scrawled criminal in jagged letters across the brick. Malik pressed a hand against the cool surface. The colors he had poured into the wall, the vibrant blues, the rich golds, the deep reds, felt like fragile proof of existence. Each stroke of spray paint now challenged by public assumption and institutional neglect. He overheard a conversation between two passers-by. "Looks like trouble," one said. "Yeah, arrested last night." "Heard he didn't even have permission," the other replied. Malik clenched his fists. Their ignorance was a kind of violence, erasing not just legality but dignity. The chapter closed on Malik drafting messages to legal aid, journalists, and supportive friends, an initial, fragile network forming around truth, evidence, and resilience. Outside, city lights reflected off what streets, the mural still standing but shadowed by misunderstanding and malice. Malik sat in the small, stuffy office of the public defender's building, the hum of fluorescent lights pressing against his thoughts. His permit lay open on the desk, edges curling slightly from repeated handling. Across from him, Attorney Reyes flipped through the pages with meticulous care, occasionally glancing up with a frown. Let me be clear, Reyes said, voice calm but firm. The law isn't automatically on your side because you have documentation. Your arrest report paints a different picture, and we'll have to address public perception as much as legal procedure. Malik's chest tightened. Public perception shouldn't matter. I have proof, approval, everything. How can this be challenged so easily? Reyes leaned back. Bias is rarely challenged in court without evidence that can't be dismissed. The officers involved, the city administration, even the community statements, they hold weight. And let's not forget, Mr. Briggs' report calls your activity suspicious. Malik clenched his fists. Suspicious because of what? My skin, my hoodie, my presence at night? That's not suspicion, that's prejudice. Dialogue continued, legal terminology intertwining with tension. Malik's frustration surfaced in short bursts, Reyes guiding him through procedural responses. First step, Reyes said, we file a motion to dismiss the charges based on documented approval and photographic evidence. Then, we prepare for potential hearings where testimony, credibility, and character could become points of attack. Malik nodded, absorbing each word. And if they try to discredit me publicly? We document everything. Social media posts, news coverage, any statements that misrepresent facts. This is about constructing a narrative based on evidence, not assumptions. Later, Malik attended a preliminary hearing. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and anticipation. Briggs' testimony was curt, sanitized. The bias was implied but not overt. Malik's presence alone seemed to draw skeptical stares, subtle questions lodged in every glance. Judge's voice cut through the murmur. We will proceed with a review of permits, evidence, and witness testimony. Case continued. Outside the courtroom, Malik's lawyer cautioned him. You survived the first stage, but the fight will be long. The system doesn't admit error easily, especially when racial assumptions underpin it. Malik's resolve hardened. The mural outside remained a silent witness, threatened by both weather and systemic neglect. He realized that fighting for recognition, legality, and dignity required more than proof. It required endurance against subtle, persistent biases at every institutional level. Malik sat in the small, stuffy office of the public defender's building, the hum of fluorescent lights pressing against his thoughts. His permit lay open on the desk, edges curling slightly from repeated handling. Across from him, Attorney Reyes flipped through the pages with meticulous care, occasionally glancing up with a frown. Let me be clear, Reyes said, voice calm but firm. The law isn't automatically on your side because you have documentation. Your arrest report paints a different picture, and we'll have to address public perception as much as legal procedure. Malik's chest tightened. Public perception shouldn't matter. I have proof, approval, everything. How can this be challenged so easily? Reyes leaned back. Bias is rarely challenged in court without evidence that can't be dismissed. The officers involved, the city administration, even the community statements, they hold weight. And let's not forget, Mr. Briggs' report calls your activity suspicious. Malik clenched his fists. Suspicious because of what? My skin, my hoodie, my presence at night? That's not suspicion, that's prejudice. Dialogue continued, legal terminology intertwining with tension. Malik's frustration surfaced in short bursts, Reyes guiding him through procedural responses. First step, Reyes said, we file a motion to dismiss the charges based on documented approval and photographic evidence. Then, we prepare for potential hearings where testimony, credibility, and character could become points of attack. Malik nodded, absorbing each word. And if they try to discredit me publicly? We document everything. Social media posts, news coverage, any statements that misrepresent facts. This is about constructing a narrative based on evidence, not assumptions. Later, Malik attended a preliminary hearing. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and anticipation. Briggs' testimony was curt, sanitized. The bias was implied but not overt. Malik's presence alone seemed to draw skeptical stares, subtle questions lodged in every glance. Judge's voice cut through the murmur. We will proceed with a review of permits, evidence, and witness testimony. Case continued. Outside the courtroom, Malik's lawyer cautioned him. You survived the first stage, but the fight will be long. The system doesn't admit error easily, especially when racial assumptions underpin it. Malik's resolve hardened. The mural outside remained a silent witness, threatened by both weather and systemic neglect. He realized that fighting for recognition, legality, and dignity required more than proof. It required endurance against subtle, persistent biases at every institutional level. A week after the hearing, Malik's phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. The voice on the other end was calm, professional, and slightly hurried. "Mr. Malik, this is Lena Carter, investigative journalist. I've reviewed footage from the night of your arrest and the Mural Commission paperwork. I believe there's more to this story than what's being reported." Malik's hands tightened around the phone. "Why contact me now?" "Because truth matters," Lena said, "and because your story exposes a pattern of bias that needs to be documented. I want to help." Malik hesitated. Trust was scarce after the public shaming, after being handcuffed and treated like a criminal despite evidence. But he sensed an opportunity. "Okay, what do you need from me?" Dialogue became the framework for action. Lena requested photos, permit copies, statements from witnesses, and timestamps. Malik shared cautiously, aware of how vulnerable the information made him, but also how critical it was for justice. Later, Malik met Lena at a small cafe near his mural. Their conversation was quiet but urgent. "The camera footage and permit are strong," Lena said. "If we present it clearly, the public and city officials will have to reckon with this." Malik nodded. "It's not just me. It's every artist, every black person who's treated as a suspect first, human second." Lena agreed. "And this is why your voice matters. Not just for you, but for systemic accountability. We'll need quotes, reactions, context, everything that proves bias rather than isolated error." Malik shared details of the mural, the commissioning process, and the night of the arrest. Every word, every gesture became part of a narrative larger than himself, exposing patterns that Briggs and the system tried to hide. As they left the cafe, Malik looked toward the wall where the mural still glimmered in fading light. He felt a cautious sense of hope. The fight was not just legal anymore. It was public, social, and documented. Allies existed in unexpected places, and truth had the potential to shift power. By evening, Malik began drafting public statements with Lena's guidance. The community he had felt abandoned by slowly reformed into a network of evidence, voices, and advocacy. The mural was no longer just paint on brick. It was a symbol, a case study in systemic injustice and the possibility of resistance. The city council meeting room smelled of polished wood and authority. Malik sat in the back, his sketchbook closed in his lap, hands pressed together. Officer Briggs occupied a seat near the front, his posture rigid, eyes flicking toward Malik with unmasked disdain. City officials shuffled papers, whispering about scheduling, permits, and complaints. The air was heavy with procedural civility that barely concealed tension. Council member Andrews called the meeting to order. "We are here to review the situation regarding the mural on East 7th Street. Briggs' voice carried over the murmurs. This individual was found painting without valid authorization. While documentation was presented, community concerns remain. We must consider legality and precedent." Malik stood. "With respect, my permit was issued by the city. The mural is commissioned, yet I was arrested, publicly shamed, and nearly erased from the narrative because of assumptions, biased assumptions." Whispers rippled across the room. A council aide tried to intervene. Malik held his ground, eyes on Briggs. "Assumptions." Briggs said, voice sharp, "I acted on reports and visual evidence. Protocol dictates response to suspicious activity. It's not personal." Malik's tone hardened. "It is personal when the protocol assumes guilt based on the color of my skin. It is systemic when my reputation is undermined while procedural blindness shields those in power." Council members exchanged glances. A murmur of acknowledgement passed through a few. One resident spoke up. "We commissioned that mural. We saw him work on it. Arresting him was wrong." Briggs' jaw tightened. "Perception matters. Evidence will follow. My duty is to enforce the law impartially." Malik countered, voice rising. "Impartiality doesn't exist in a vacuum. Bias hides in every assumption. I am asking you to see the facts, not the fear projected onto me." The meeting devolved into a tense exchange of dialogue. City officials balancing procedure and public scrutiny, Briggs defending his authority, Malik asserting truth with clarity and evidence. His words expose a coded language of institutional protection, highlighting how prejudice can be systemic rather than overt. By the end of the session, council members promised a review of the incident, an official apology, and reinstatement of Malik's mural privileges. Briggs left without comment, his authority publicly challenged, the room still resonating with the moral weight of the confrontation. Malik stepped outside into the crisp night air, rain beginning to fall lightly. The mural awaited, vibrant and resilient, now a testament to resistance, advocacy, and the slow unveiling of justice. The morning headlines hit Malik's phone like a tidal wave. Investigative report exposes bias in arrest of local artist. Lena's byline led the article, laying out a timeline. Malik's commissioned mural, the permit, the wrongful arrest, and the subtle racial bias underpinning Officer Briggs' actions. Screenshots of the mural, permit documents, and video stills accompanied the report. Malik read, absorbing every word. The evidence was clear, unassailable, but the story's power lay in public perception. Social media buzzed with discussion, some sympathetic, some defensive of the officer, most shocked by the institutional failure. Comments range from outrage to reflective. How does this happen in 2025? Bias hides in plain sight. Finally, someone holding authority accountable. At the courthouse, Malik arrived early. The judge called the case, and Briggs' demeanor had shifted. He sat rigid, reviewing documents, aware that public scrutiny now accompanied every word he spoke. Officer Briggs, the judge began, you are here to clarify your actions in the arrest of Mr. Malik. Evidence submitted demonstrates a commissioned project and proper permits. Testimony and video footage have revealed procedural misjudgments and potential bias. Briggs attempted a defensive response. My actions were based on reports and observation. Based on assumptions, not facts, the judge interrupted. The city and law enforcement have a responsibility to review your conduct. Formal disciplinary actions will follow. Mr. Malik's record is cleared. Any further misrepresentation may result in civil liability. Outside the courtroom, Malik spoke briefly to Lena. This doesn't erase what happened, but it makes a statement. The system can be held accountable when evidence and voices align. Community leaders gathered near the mural later that day. Dialogue flowed, journalists, residents, fellow artists, and Malik exchanging perspectives on systemic bias, community support, and the significance of public art. Each conversation underscored resilience and collective awareness. Briggs' reputation suffered. Social media and press coverage amplified the exposure, framing him as a cautionary example rather than a silent authority figure. He faced suspension pending review, mandatory bias training, and public scrutiny he could not evade. Malik returned to the mural, now fully visible in daylight. Children paused to admire the colors. Parents explained the story behind the artwork. Dialogue between observers ranged from praise for Malik's talent to reflections on the injustice he endured. Malik's presence was steady, but internally he catalogued every subtle insult, every sleepless night, every public humiliation. The victory was measured, not celebratory. It was acknowledgment tempered with memory of trauma. As the evening fell, Malik documented the mural with new photographs. Lena's article had inspired other journalists to investigate similar patterns of bias in city enforcement. Malik felt the weight of advocacy, the responsibility of visibility, and the persistent vigilance required to protect creative and personal rights in a biased system. The mural stood, not just as art, but as evidence of endurance, scrutiny, and the slow arc of justice. Weeks later, Malik observed the final touches being applied to the mural. Restoration teams cleaned graffiti, touched up fading sections, and reinforced signage indicating the mural's commission status. Each stroke and polish symbolized more than artistic completion. It was a city acknowledging truth over assumption, art over prejudice. Officer Briggs' disciplinary hearing concluded. Dialogue excerpt from official proceedings circulated online. Mr. Briggs, your actions reflected bias and misjudgment. The review board stated. Procedures exist to prevent wrongful arrests, yet you acted on unverified suspicion. Suspension and mandatory retraining are imposed. Briggs remained stoic but visibly diminished. His authority, once absolute in his uniform, had been publicly undermined. Media coverage detailed the consequences, emphasizing accountability over scapegoating, fairness over sympathy for status. Malik addressed a small community gathering at the mural site. His words were deliberate, carrying weight without spectacle. Art is more than paint. It is expression, history, and voice. The system failed me, but our collective truth ensured recognition. We cannot erase bias, but we can illuminate it. Listeners asked questions. Dialogue unfolded organically. Residents, fellow artists, and advocates discussing systemic reform, the importance of evidence, and ways to support marginalized creators. Malik facilitated, guiding the narrative toward resilience and constructive change rather than revenge. Despite the legal victory and public vindication, Malik felt the emotional toll. Nights of anxiety, constant vigilance, and eroded trust lingered. He acknowledged the trauma, incorporating it into his art, lectures, and advocacy. The mural became a symbol not only of justice served, but also of the personal cost inherent in challenging entrenched bias. Briggs, reassigned to administrative duties, faced continued scrutiny. Colleagues avoided him. Social media and community groups maintained a record of his misconduct. The public acknowledgement of his failings created a new hierarchy of accountability, proof that systemic abuse, when exposed, yields consequences. Malik's mural attracted students, local officials, and tourists. Each visitor, through dialogue and observation, absorbed lessons about bias, perseverance, and the moral imperative to protect artistic and civic rights. His story, amplified by investigative reporting, served as precedent and inspiration. By nightfall, Malik walked along East 7th Street, rain soft on the pavement, the mural's colors glowing under streetlights. He paused, reflecting on the journey, systemic injustice confronted, truth revealed, authority held accountable. Yet the shadow of trauma remained, a reminder that justice is both external and internal, measured not by victory alone but by resilience, reflection, and enduring vigilance.